I'm not gonna lie, this is probably the hardest video I've had to make in a few weeks, maybe even a month, maybe several months, because there is just so many different pieces of information that we can string together to form our narrative for this video that I don't really know where to take it. Does that make sense? Like, there's just so much stuff to talk about that I don't know how to put it all together. So I'm going to do my best to try to form some narrative on the Vancouver Canucks and the results of their recent training camp, and actually try to bring you a scoop of what's going on. Obviously, I'm not there at the practices, but I do have many very awesome Twitter follows on Twitter that do attend these practices and do ask the questions and do get the quotes. So we're going to be stringing together a few of these different scenarios to form what is ultimately our Vancouver Canucks news and rumors package. Let's start off this whole thing by talking about a joke made by Mr. Booth. He makes this joke on July 19th, and the way it's presented kind of frames itself as relevant today. Who's ready for the Canucks Twitter meltdown when Travis Green scratches Jake Virtanen for Sutter and Eriksson? Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, first off, when we talk about Jake Virtanen, the whole controversy that was going on with Jake Virtanen and his performance at training camp and scrimmage hasn't really died down all too much. He scored a few goals here and there during the actual scrimmage games that were broadcasted on Sportsnet, but for the most part, the way other media people are framing it on Twitter with their updates and their radio hits, they speak highly about other Vancouver Canucks players who may honestly have an opportunity to quote-unquote steal Virtanen's job here. One of them is Zack MacEwen, who, as early as July 19th, Thomas Drance was saying was the best Canucks skater through 25 minutes, a player who could absolutely have wrecking ball periods. 2 days ago, my buddy Chris Faber, he runs a podcast called Canucks Conversation, and he is on Canucks Army. I was on that podcast 2 times, and he's a very good Twitter follow. He has been posting really, really good updates on the Vancouver Canucks practices and scrimmages. He posted this 2 days ago on July 24th before practice. Tonight's scrimmage is a big one for MacEwen and Virtanen. Has this been another one of Travis Green's tactics to get Virtanen going, or has MacEwen really worked his way into the lineup due to his excellent showing at Camp 2.0? Well, what exactly is he referring to? Well, he's referring to the lines that Travis Green was rolling out for the scrimmages. Take a look at this. This is Canucks Abby fan number 2, who posted a chart of the lines that actually took place from the scrimmage. According to the distribution, it actually appears like Jake Virtanen isn't even on the top 4. The first line goes Miller, Petey, Toffoli. The second is Pearson, Horvat, and Besser. Third is where things get interesting because you have Roussel, Gaudette, and Micheal Ferland. And the fourth line has Tyler Mott, Jay Beagle, and Zack MacEwen. From there, you have Louis Eriksson, Sutter, and Virtanen forming what would be the fifth line, quote-unquote, and then the sixth line consists of Grayovac, Lind, and Justin Bailey. You can see the decor as well as the goaltending pairings here too. Interesting to note, Olli Levy is in that third pairing slot above Fantenberg, Brisebois, and Jordy Ben, who actually had to leave out on camp. But the fact is, these lines had been rolling out, and it's why the media was talking over and over about this Virtanen-MacEwen versus situation. Because the fact is, MacEwen was just so good during practices, and he was slotted above Virtanen in the perceived lines. And the reason this is important is because the media was able to document it. Now, I've seen some fans actually getting kind of pissed off. Oh, the media is so heavy. Why do they care so much about the lines? It's causing controversy where there shouldn't be controversy. And for the most part, that idea makes sense, but I don't believe that is actually correct. The idea that fans should not care about media access is ludicrous. MacEwen versus Virtanen has been a huge story, and it's dependent on coverage during training camp. Imagine instead watching Game 1 versus the Wild and seeing MacEwen playing and Virtanen scratched and having no idea why. Furthermore, Travis Green said this in an interview earlier in the week, "I'm not going to be able to wait for players to be ready to play." That's just the way it is. The way he is building his lineup is based off of who is ready today, and who can actually play today, and who's better than their competitors today. And the way the lines have gone out, it appears that MacEwen may have just gotten that spot over Jake Virtanen. But hey, There's another guy we want to talk about here today. It's Micheal Ferland, who slotted in on that third line beside Antoine Roussel and Adam Gaudette. Jackie Chen here asks Thomas Drance, hey, did Micheal Ferland just make the team? And Drance said every indication he's seen from tonight, which was July 24th, 2 days ago, suggests that he's got an inside track going into next week's exhibition game. So yeah. Ian McIntyre said this earlier yesterday, that Canucks are ending camp with an aggressive 2v2 game in the circle. And Micheal Ferland is an absolute beast. We also had word from Micheal Ferland via the Zoom interviews that he feels so much better today than he did back when he returned last time. And I know that may seem as, oh man, he's just making excuses again. This is what he said the previous time. But then he actually kind of illustrated his thoughts a little bit more colorfully, I would say. He mentioned how last time he came back to the Vancouver Canucks, his sleep schedule was all messed up. He couldn't really find himself as coherent as he would like to be. And he mentioned how all that stuff has faded away after training in the offseason, coming back to Vancouver, and practicing during this training camp. Here's the quote from Brendan Batchelor. Micheal Ferland says his biggest issue with concussion symptoms was all the bodies and the quick movement of players on the ice. He described it as feeling drunk when symptoms came on. He said physicality was never an issue, and he still plans to play that style of game. And hopefully that style of game is what we see, because this other quote over here mentions how he says, once playoff hockey starts, I'm going to be hitting, and I'm going to be hitting hard. And now, after working his way back onto the Vancouver Canucks roster, where initially he was deemed unfit to play, but then eventually he came back, and he finished things up on a line with Adam Gaudette and Antoine Roussel, it looks like we may have this as our bottom six. Roussel, Gaudette, and Ferland, with Mott, Beagle, and let's just say MacEwen and/or Sutter in that last right wing spot. So with the way everything goes on, this may be our lineup for the Vancouver Canucks heading into at least the exhibition game against the Winnipeg Jets, and maybe even against the Minnesota Wild. So the ultimate question I have here for you is, what do you think about this? Because I know many Vancouver Canucks fans are going to say, oh, Jake Virtanen deserves a spot. Okay, Jake, why is Jake not in the lineup? I don't care how good MacEwen is, get Jake in there. Let's see some playoff hockey from Jake. And I know I totally am one of those people as well. I mentioned this in the previous video, we talked about Jake Virtanen as well, but in the Hot Take Hockey John interview that I did for the Vancouver Canucks Minnesota Wild play-in series preview, I mentioned how Jake was the guy that I thought could really explode this series. But from camp, it just looks like MacEwen has earned that spot over him. Obviously, though, I'm not there, and the ones who are there are watching everything, getting the interviews, etc., but also watching the highlights, because the Canucks do post the highlights of the scrimmages on their YouTube channel and their Twitter pages. MacEwen's been an absolute beast. This guy's been scoring crazy goals, getting breakaways, and doing some pretty good things out there. Big snipes on the rush from the far hash marks, one-timers set up by guys like Elias Pettersson. There's a lot to be loved out of watching the big fella do his thing out there on the ice. But to me, it's bittersweet, because obviously I want Jake Virtanen to come in here and do his thing, but if Zack MacEwen is just better, if he just adds more to the team than Virtanen does, then I guess I got no choice but to say, you know what, let's see the big fella at it. As for Micheal Ferland, he's a guy who, honestly, if he is able to play the same way as he did 5 years ago, I want this guy on the first line, man. Give this guy 15, 16, 17, 18 minutes a night as a winger, and let him terrorize the Minnesota Wild. Because if he plays the same way he did against the Vancouver Canucks as a member of the Calgary Flames when he made his debut, then this guy can change the fate of the entire series with just a few big hits. That's exactly what happened 5 years ago, and I still am not emotionally recovered from it. So now the opportunity for seeing that on our side of the pond presents itself. And if he's feeling much better, hey, I want to see it. I want to see this happen. And playing on a really nice energy line with Roussel and Gaudette that can also provide some scoring certainly doesn't seem like a bad thing either. Roussel and Ferland on the same gosh darn line. Man, teams are really going to hate that. Add to that the scoring touch and two-way ability that Adam Gaudette possesses, and all of a sudden you have a really, really nice looking third line. So, Vancouver Canucks fans, talk to me in the comments below. What do you think about Zack MacEwen beating out Jake Virtanen in the lineup, and what do you think about Micheal Micheal Ferland's return. There's so much stuff to talk about, but I'm honestly looking forward to watching all of it pay off once this Vancouver Canucks team gets suited up on the ice against the Minnesota Wild. I hope you enjoyed this video. Social 99, and bye.